We are back for another week of Fantasy Football in 5. Last week we talked about running backs, and this week we're going to be talking about wide receivers. And if you haven't checked out the running back video, you're going to want to because it's great.
Click it below. Alright, so as usual, we've highlighted about 5 wide receivers who we think are going to have pretty good years. And so we'd like to talk about Antonio Brown, Calvin Johnson, Jordy Nelson, Demaryius Thomas, and Des Bryant. We expect Antonio Brown to have the best season of all 5 of them because the way he's been producing numbers have been far more significant than any other of these wide receivers. Also, Calvin Johnson, we think he's going to have the not necessarily the worst year of all the 5, but he's going to have the least impactful year because of the emergence of Golden Tate. So expect Stafford to balance it out more instead of always going to Calvin Johnson.
Alright, now a couple of receivers you want to shy away from this year in fantasy, or who won't produce as well as they're expected to, would be ones like Odell Beckham. Now, a lot of drafts he's going in the first or second round, which I can see why, but he's not going to have as great a numbers as everyone thinks.
I wouldn't hop on the Odell train just yet.
Yeah, I mean, Victor Cruz is coming back, which is going to have a little bit of an impact on what he gets in the red zone and stuff. And then there are other receivers like Marcus Colston, who is getting older, and Drew Brees, I mean, he's also getting older. So the team is kind of slowly falling apart, and they lost Jimmy Graham. It's going to be hard to have another guy to just jump in there. And then there's Sammy Watkins, who a lot of people think he's going to be improving, which I think he will improve.
Probably.
But he has Percy Harvin on the team now, and he doesn't really have a connection with any of the Bills' quarterbacks. So it's kind of putting him at a disadvantage. Mm-hmm. But maybe next year, he might be a guy to look out for.
Alright, so in our draft strategy, which is our first video, we said to grab wide receivers in rounds 2 and 3. That's because if you don't get wide receivers back-to-back, you will miss out on bench performance, I think. Because if you drop like a wide receiver, say round 4, you'll have a backup on the regular teams and on your team yourself. So grab those 2 wide receivers early and look for players like AJ Green, maybe Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb even, and T.Y. Hilton, who I think he's not really a sleeper, but he's going to be a great draft steal in round 3 if you can get him there. Also, round 7, which is the flex position, where we want you to draft the flex, draft a wide receiver because they'll provide more points, I think, than a running back would at this point of the draft because of the rankings. So look for players like Golden Tate, Amari Cooper even, Andre Johnson, and Brandon Marshall.
Now, a couple of sleepers this year in the wide receiver class will include names like Amari Cooper. Now, a lot of people do think he's going to be really good, but I think he's going to be even better than people think. Simply because there's no other big-name receiver on that team, and Derek Carr, I think he's going to have a really good year. So look for Cooper in the touchdown department. And then there's John Brown from the Arizona Cardinals. A lot of people don't really know about him, but he is coming on really big. I mean, he has Carson Palmer, who played really well last year before he got hurt. And then there's Larry Fitzgerald, who is getting older, and they're going to need someone to replace him, and I think John Brown is that guy. And then there's Charles Johnson from the Minnesota Vikings. Now, he emerged last year as their #1 receiver toward the end, and even though they have Mike Wallace, Charles Johnson is going to be the other guy on the outside, and look for him to be in the red zone, a threat, and just an altogether good receiver.
And one more, Martavis Bryant from the Steelers. Bryant came on really hot last year after he came back from injury. He was Ben's favorite deep threat target, so look for him in the red zone and also on those long 20-plus yard plays. I think he's going to be a great asset for Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers this year. This was Fantasy Football in 5. We deliver all your fantasy news in 5 minutes or less. Because honestly, who would want to watch a 30-minute video on this topic?
Amen.
Stick with us next week as we talk about the tight ends, and we will post videos every Wednesday and Saturday during the preseason than every Saturday during the regular season. So stay tuned for further videos and subscribe to us.